Do you remember in college when we took education classes and they used to make us write these like insane 10-page long lesson plans for our like 7-minute lessons that we would share with the other students or that we were doing in student teaching, and they would just be so long and so thought out and so detailed, and you know, everything went down to the moment of how long it was. And then you got into the real world and realized that for all your planning, sometimes things just don't go well. There are so many different factors that happen when you are teaching that sometimes you can't account for. When you're teaching, you're dealing with lots of different students, especially if you're new and you don't know your students very well. You're dealing with lots of different classes, different classroom management styles. You're dealing with students coming to you already upset or getting upset during a game or whatever it is. And there's just so many different things that happen because teaching is so situational. Teaching on one day in one school at one time is completely different than others, and the smallest things can change things. If there's anything out of the ordinary, like, things are different. And sometimes you'll find that even if you have the most beautiful, perfect lesson, sometimes it just goes off the rails. So what do you do when the lesson just goes completely off the lesson plan, completely off the rails? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. So if you have found yourself in that situation before, first, no, you are not alone. We have all had those days where for whatever reason, it just wasn't working, and I sympathize and I understand. And I will tell you that the longer you do this, the less of those days you'll have, because it does get easier. You do have more things, you do know your kids better. But in the meantime, these are going to be a couple of tips to help you out for the next time. Hopefully there is no next time, but the next time that this happens to you. So without further ado, what happens when your elementary music lesson goes off the rails? All right, first of all, we want to talk about the difference between being proactive and reactive. When you are reactive, that means that you are literally reacting to everything that is happening throughout the lesson. So you might have one of those days where you are responding to situations. So like the class is late, okay, now I have to change things. There's a fire drill, gotta change things more. And you know, like then the phone rings and things that just keep popping up and you have to react to them. And those things can really stress you out. Every time that you're putting out lots of little fires, it's going to be more stressful. Now, those are things that are kind of outside of your control. Other things that could contribute into this is like maybe if you didn't have things prepped, if the kids come in and they're just like bouncing off the walls, whatever. We don't want to be reactive. We always want to be proactive. Being proactive means that you have routines and systems and concepts in place so that you are ready before something happens and you are prepared for it. Being prepared is going to be your best defense against anything else that the children or the school system can throw at you. Literally and figuratively. So in order to be proactive, you want to think about things that might pop up in your lessons. So things like, so some things could be things like just routines, rituals, things that you normally have in your class, like what if someone has to go to the bathroom? What if we have a question? What if this happens? What if that happens? The other thing is things that might pop up in your particular lesson. And this will come in time, but you'll notice that lots of kids might have the same question, or that kids might be more likely to play their instrument at the wrong time if you play with certain instruments and different things like that. So make sure you have a plan for what you're gonna do when someone plays their instrument at the wrong time, when something happens, when somebody is not following directions, when you're, make sure you have your classroom management in place so that you can handle all of those things. I'll link my classroom management playlist down below because I have a lot of videos on the subject because it is very, very important and undereducated in our, school system. So I want to make sure that I share as much as I can with you because it is so important. So you also want to be proactive in your lesson planning. So the first step of making sure that your lesson doesn't go off the rails is to make sure that you think through all those things. So remember those, again, 10-page lessons that they used to make you do? It's because they wanted you to think through all the things that could happen, and that was the best way that they knew how to do it without actually throwing you into a classroom full of children. So you want to actually plan for what will happen if the lesson is going to off the rails. Now there's a couple ways you can do that. Number one is make sure that your lessons are engaging. Anne Molesky over on the Anna Kruzek podcast always says the best classroom management plan is a good lesson plan. And although I don't fully agree with that, I do agree with it to the point of if your lesson is boring, the kids are going to be crazy. And so in order to make sure that your lesson plan stays on track, you need to make it engaging, make it interesting, make sure that you're switching things up often enough that the kids aren't bored. So as you are making your lesson, make sure you think through like, oh, they're probably going to need to switch activities very often. I was always told that kids have the attention span of about their age. So if they're 5, they got 5 minutes until you lost them, and then you need to switch to something else. So make sure that you're switching activities very often. Make sure that you're switching up between high energy and low energy activities. So all throughout my lessons, we'll do something high energy where they're like, you know, actively doing something, and then maybe we're learning a new song, and then maybe we like do a game with the song, and then we work on a new rhythm element with the song, and we like make rhythms with our manipulatives or whatever. But I think about like the levels of activity, the levels of movement, the levels of engagement, and I'm always going to make sure that if I have something that I really need them to concentrate on, that we have something really movement based before, so that they get the wiggles out, and then we can calm down a minute, and then we can talk about the important thing. Otherwise, they're not going to pay attention. So make sure that you are doing things. If you want to just make your lessons a little bit more engaging, you can add props, so things like scarves, parachutes. Today I was playing a game with Beanie Babies, such a hit. You can add games, you can add movements, add manipulatives, change where they're seating. So when we're change where they're sitting. So we sometimes sit in our like normal music positions, and then we'll switch to being in a circle, and then we'll switch to being in line, and then we'll switch to being in, you know, small groups and different things like that. Every time the kids get to change something, it feels more exciting. So just anytime you can add those things in, then add them in. Make sure the kids are doing something actively. Even if you're talking, I always intersperse talking with having them, you know, trace the melody to a song, or having them keep the beat to a song. Or if I'm talking, then maybe I have them like echo things back to me so that they're talking too. And just the more you can make it engaging, the less issues you're gonna have with the lesson going insane. Be proactive, make it engaging. Think about those things when you're making your lesson plan. Like, how often are they moving? How often are we switching activities? Like all of those things. What are the kids actually doing? Are they just twiddling their thumbs? Are they going to start hitting each other? Those are important things to pay attention to. Number 2 is keep the pace up. When you are doing any kind of teaching, you need to keep the pace up, because if you are slow, then the kids will get bored, and then when they get bored, that is when you have lost them. So again, switch activities very often. Make sure you're adding movement in, make sure you change things up. We often, like, I'll share a lesson with you for like I'm thinking my like wolf game, okay? And so we learn the song, we learn the game, we do the xylophones, we do all the things, but we don't do them all on the same day. We do them all on different days. So we'll learn the song one day, and then the next day we'll play the game, and then because I split it all up so that there's a lot of different things going on to keep the pace up. The other thing is minimizing transitions, especially the worst transition is when you forget what you're doing and you're like, what were you gonna do next? You can't do that. You can't do that. They will eat you alive. So make sure that you have either like a lesson plan in front of you that's like, these are the things that you're doing so that you don't forget. Or I like to have Google Slides up on the screen that have all of like the lyrics to the song and the game and the rhythms and all the things, so that I don't have to think when I'm teaching about that stuff, because I'm thinking about the kids. I'm thinking about, you know, who's getting it, who's not getting it, how are we on time, how are we on like, you know, knowledge level, how are we on, you know, are we going to start, you know, randomly attacking each other? Those things are important to think about. I'm not thinking about all of the other things. So I just have a little clicker. I got mine off of Amazon. I will link down below, super cheap. And I just have my Google Slides up on the projector, and I'll have a slide for each thing. So I never have to stop and think like, what are we doing next? I just go, and then it's like, oh, we're going to that song. Excellent. Here's our new song. Let's go. Make sure that, again, you're changing activities quickly. You're changing things you're adding a lot of movement. If you want to see how I do that, I have an entire playlist of what I call What I'm Teaching This Week, where I share literally everything that we do in a week with a different grade level, because I see my kids for a week at a time. So I'll share like, on Monday we do this, and on Tuesday we do this. And you can see that more in action of like how it actually flows in my elementary music room. So I'll link some of those playlists down below. The next thing you want to do is plan for things to go wrong. So what I mean by this is, as you're lesson planning, have in the back of your mind, where are places that things could just not work out? So for me, that's oftentimes things like, if we're moving around the room, are they going to be able to move around the room without attacking each other? Are they going to be able to move around the room without running? Are they going to be able to listen? Are they going to actually move around the room and follow directions? And if the answer is no, then I need a backup plan for what we can do if we can't move around the room. Because I have some classes I do not allow to move around the room, or very rarely, because I don't trust them, because you know, they just haven't earned the trust yet. And so we do our activities in our seats. And so that's a quick way to calm things down, is instead of moving around the room, well, here's our like progression of chaos to calm. Moving around the room is gonna be the most chaotic activity. Moving in a circle is gonna be your second. Moving in your seat, and then sitting in your seat is gonna be like the calmest thing to do. So if you're doing actions along with the song, you can have them moving around the room, or you can have them moving in a circle, or you can have them moving in their spot, or you can have them moving in their seat. And typically when I do this, I actually start from calm and we get to chaos. So the first time we do an activity, we'll usually do it in our seats, then we'll stand up and do it, then we'll move in a circle and do it, and then we might move around the room and do it. Okay, so we build up, and it provides that scaffolding of they know enough that it's not just like mass chaos when you try to do something, because you're sequencing up to it, you're building up to it. And if we can't reach the top level, it's fine, we just stay here. Okay, and I'm okay with that, because it's more important to me that the kids learn the stuff and that the kids have fun and that the kids are safe than the kids are moving around the room. So just be aware of that. Other places you might lose kids is if you are like spending too much time on something. So make sure that you have a plan for, if this is taking too long, then we can switch to something else. Like, how can we just change things? And so you can just, you know, have a plan for all those things. I literally will have like a lesson plan, and then I'll have like notes on the side of like, if that doesn't work, we can do this. If that doesn't work, we can do this. Because, you know, it's good to have options. You know, if your kids are not going to be able to use manipulatives because they're just going to throw them around the room, what can you do instead of manipulatives? Can you use markers? Can you use paper and pencil? Can you just have the kids show you what to do and you write it on the board? Like, what can you do in order to make things a little bit more calm? Think about that as you write your lessons, so that you are proactive, you have a plan, you know what to do, and then you'll be okay. Next up is to make a backup plan. So these are things you could actually literally have a backup plan that's like written out, or you could just have in the back of your brain a couple of different activities that you could do with any class at pretty much any time. So a couple of things that are really easy for me. I think I have a whole blog post, it's really old, but it should still be pretty relevant. That's all about backup lesson plans that I have in my brain, but a couple of different ones. Reading books. I always keep a couple of books handy that are relevant to what we're talking about, so that if we have extra time, or if we just like whatever we were gonna do isn't gonna work, we can read a book instead. Okay, that's always nice and calm. You can sing a song that we already know really well, especially a song with actions where they're sitting and like just calming down doing actions. You can pull out a game that the kids already know that's maybe a calmer game, maybe like a sitting like pass, like a hot potato situation. Those are a little bit more calm. Or even like a freeze dance, like Grizzly Bear is one of my favorites. I'll link that down below. Or how we play the wolf game. I do those very similarly. I'll link that down below. And those are both ones where the kids like move and then freeze. And so they're still moving, but it's a little more calm because then they gotta freeze. Other ones, what else do I like? Oh, older kids. Closet key is a great one for the older kids, because it's sitting, as well as, what's the other one I'm after? Love Somebody is a good one for the older kids. That's a good like sitting down one. So I'll see if I can link those down below. I'm not sure when this video is going out, so there might already be videos about those and there might not, but we shall see. I've been getting into like doing things really ahead of time, so that you can see June, so that I can like function during the school year. And because of that, I'm like, I don't know when anything is happening, but it's fine. Having a couple of movies or TV shows or YouTube videos that you just know will work in the back of your brain that you can easily pull up. So like I used to go with, there were some Arthur episodes, but PBS went through and like took all the Arthur off of YouTube. That was unfortunate. But like House of Sound has some really good ones on instrument families, and just like Disney Silly Symphonies. Those are good, like classical music, like cartoons. Those are all really cute and really simple, and you can just go to Google, you know, go to YouTube, Disney Silly Symphony, The Big Bad Wolf is my favorite one, and then they can watch that and like kill a little bit of time, and that's something that you can do if they're not gonna be able to handle something else and things are really bad and you're like, we just need to calm down, you know, like they came late and there was a fire drill and this and that and that, all the things. And putting on a meditation video I've seen really big success on this one. So like Cosmic Yoga has a lot of kids meditation, Go Doodle has a lot of kids meditation, and those are really good for the kids, especially if they come to you like wild. It really does help to calm them down. So one thing I've done with classes that I know are going to be issues is we'll start by doing like a Go Noodle and then a meditation video, and that takes up like 10 minutes of time, but then we're like calm and ready to actually start music. And so that's a good way you can kind of accommodate to make sure that everyone is, you know, on the right track. So that's a couple of different things that you can do as far as games. Movement-based songs are also ones that will work pretty well, or like Poison is a really good game that you can whip out at any time. Great for the older kids especially. I'll link a thing all about that down below. And yeah, so there's just lots of options. Just, you can actually literally have a list, or you can just have in the back of your brain like these are things that will work if we really need to change something. Because you know, sometimes the kids show up and you have like 40 of them because the other special teachers aren't there, or the kids show up and you have like 4 of them because they took the other ones for testing, and you're like, now what do we do? There's only 4 of you. Or they come and they're all riled up because they had a sub, or we have a fire drill and then all hope is lost, or whatever it is. Like, you just, there's so many things you don't know. And so just having all of those things in the back of your brain really will help. You won't need them all the time, but just having them like, I know that we can do this if all else fails, is a really good thing to just be aware of. And the last thing I want to say is make sure that you are reflecting on your lesson. So after each lesson, not each lesson because mine are back to back to back, but at the end of the day, I'll kind of take a couple of seconds to think through like, okay, what went well, what didn't go well? If there was a certain class that maybe like that lesson wasn't as good as it could have been, how can I change that and adapt it for the next group of kids? Because you don't want to just like leave it. If something's not working, don't just leave it. If something's not working, then make it work. You know? So if it doesn't work well with the first group, then try something different with the second group so that you get to a point where it's going better. And again, as you get better, as time passes and you have been doing this longer, it will get easier. As you have been doing this longer, it will get easier and you will be better just because of experience. So do know that in the back of your brain. But I really hope this helps. I know that it is like legitimately the worst feeling when you just have one of those classes that is just, it's just not happening today. And some of you are at schools where you have never experienced that, and kudos to you. For the rest of us, we need backup plans. We need to reflect. We need to change things. We need to be very, very intentional about our lesson plans to make sure that they are engaging and exciting and the kids want to do them, and all of that good stuff. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it just helped you to, you know, get a couple of ideas, put them in the back of your brain. I'll link all those things down below in the description. And if you have any questions, even like legitimately, if you have anything that you're like scared to ask someone, or you think someone's gonna think you're stupid, I promise I have seen it, I have heard it, I might have said it, I might have had that question. Message me over at Instagram. It's at Becca's Music Room. Nothing your kids do will surprise me. So just feel free, if you got a question, if you have a concern, message me over there. That's the best way to reach me, and I will be happy to help in any way that I can. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.